Right now, though, we focus on an organization that we're very familiar with here, and that is the Haven of Rest Ministries and Inasmuch House. Daniel Jones is the executive director. He joins us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Tim. Good to be here.
We have our roof set coming up, I think in about 3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks from Friday.
Doesn't that sound fun?
Yeah. It's,
I hope it's a little cooler. But,
a little
90
cooler,
degrees on the roof is, whoa.
Yeah, we don't really like thunderstorms either, but up on those roofs, it can get pretty hot. So
toasty.
75, 76 degrees, that would be just perfect.
That's a great plan.
Yeah. We do this every year, and it's more important than ever this year. Funding is always a challenge for nonprofit organizations like yours. But before we get into the funding stuff, just tell us, give us an overview. Let's say people have never even heard of you or just moved to town. They don't know what exactly you do. It's a lot of things.
Sure is. The Haven of Rest is Calhoun County's emergency homeless shelter, and we serve anywhere from 2,100 to 2,300 people in a given year, unique individuals that are going through the crisis of homelessness. When they come to us, we meet them right where they're at, provide food, clothing, shelter, and some case management work to try and help them improve and create change in their life. We're a faith-based center, and we do this all in the name of Christ. So just moving forward every day down at the Haven.
And that's just the Haven of Rest part of it.
Sure.
Just the homeless part of it. I mean, you're feeding people, you're giving them tools that they need to try and better their lives.
Just meeting those basic symptoms of homelessness, right? The food and the immediate feeding needs, and people shelter for overnight. But then we go beyond that. We've got programs for substance abuse recovery, probably two of our best and well-known programs, the men's and women's life recovery programs that help people really deal with addictions and things that sometimes, most of the times, are at the root cause of homelessness.
And there are other options out there for people who need treatment, drug treatment. Some of them are free, and some of them cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. But I think what most people that have been in those shoes and have managed to find recovery will tell you is a lot of times it's the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th different try or different program that finally gets through to them. And a lot of times the people that come to your programs, they've been through a lot of other programs. Their parents and grandparents and loved ones have spent thousands of dollars. They're at the end of their rope. They have no idea what to do next, and then all of a sudden they come to your program and it takes.
That's very perceptive. Really, we meet people sometimes at the very bottom when they've burned every bridge they've had. And when you're at the bottom of yourself and ready to change, that's when the Haven of Rest can really step in and help. And our programs are offered completely free. So people can come into them. In the men's life recovery program, they can be in residence for up to 12 months. And that's really just a huge reset in someone's life. That's the difference that the programs make of the Haven.
What is Inasmuch House, and what do you do there?
Inasmuch House is our family and children's shelter. So single women or women with children, or even mom and dad or dad with children. That's what that shelter is for. It's got 55 beds, and they're very, very full all the time. But when people come in, it's an emergency shelter. We offer up to 60 days in the shelter, and during that time, people are going to meet with a case manager and immediately begin working on improving their life and kind of figuring out, what are the next steps to take to be successful? What's keeping people from being successful? And that's when we step in and start to help.
Yeah, a lot of those people come in maybe with the shirt on their back and certainly no job resume.
Sure. I mean, we've talked about in past roof sets some of the success stories where mom shows up with 2 kids on the back of a bicycle and nothing more really than a few clothes in a bag. But when they leave, they're into other programs that the Haven offers where they can be in residence up to 2 years and continue working. And the kids get educational assistance as well, in a neat program that we developed to help kids get up to speed educationally. It's just an overall get your arms around the whole family kind of a place. And it's a good place. It's a healthy place. It's clean. It's bright. It's just a good place for folks to be.
What kind of a staff do you have to do all of this?
Well, with the 10 ministries that we run, plus the administrative staff, we've actually, in the last year, cut down to about 50 employees. And that's including the desk staff that works overnight. We have to have people in our desks and our programs 24/7. So 50 people sounds like a lot, but when you think about 10 different ministries being run, that's an average of about 5 per ministry. And that's not counting our administrative staff. So, less than that, less than 5 per ministry. That's pretty lean. We're really working to make the most and be the best stewards of the dollars that we get.
And of course, that's a lot of expense right there, but we haven't even talked about heat bills and electric bills and phone bills and all of that stuff.
Yeah, the utilities is our second largest expense. The first is employees and payroll. The second is utilities, clearly. And we've set our air conditioners at, not wonderfully cool levels. We have to keep the shelters cool for people in these kind of heat events. But we're certainly not living large down there. It's not a 60-degree or 68-degree day. It's in the mid-70s on our air conditioner. And that's a first world problem, right? Oh, gee, we're at mid-70s. But, we do try and stretch as hard as we can.
Then another expense, of course, are the day-to-day things that people need when they come there. Like you mentioned, a lot of times they'll come in, a mom and a couple of kids on a bicycle with the clothes they're wearing, nothing else. They're going to need toilet paper. They're going to need soap. They're going to need shampoo, not to mention all the food and meals, but all of that type of stuff.
True. And it's interesting, everything that it takes to run your household in a given week, just multiply that by about 40. We have an average of 140, 150 people down at the Haven every night. So a family of 4, just multiply it, as I say, by 35 or 40. That's how much toilet paper and soap and just everything that you go through in a day. Laundry soap especially. Although we've got a neat program. We kind of got creative and worked with the Firekeepers Casino Hotel, where we take laundry from the Haven out to them. Sheets and bedding and towels and blankets. Literally pack it up, bag it up, drive it out there every day, pick up yesterday's laundry of the sheets, the towels, and the blankets, and bring them back. And they do they do some of that wash for us, and it's just amazing. It saves us so much money and time.
Thanks to them for being such great supporters of the organization here and great supporters of our community. So all of this takes funding from a lot of different places. I mean, we have our roof sit every year. I imagine that's just a small portion of what you need.
Well, of just Inasmuch House, it's about 25% of their annual budget when we do the roof set. So it's very important that we have a strong roof set. And the Haven is in such gratitude to WBCK and Town Square Media and 104.9 and the whole crew that gets together, and everybody on the bucket brigades that are out there in their green shirts, and every donor that throws some money in those buckets. We're counting on you.
What are we looking for? Well, I forgot what our goal is.
$60,000. That's a big number, and we eclipsed it a little bit last year, so I'm hopeful for this year too.
All right, $60,000. We will get started on Friday, the 22nd, 23rd. Yep, 22nd and 23rd. Funding comes, you mentioned 25% of Inasmuch House from our annual roof sit. I know you have the Blues Jam and Chili cook-off in the winter.
Yep.
And that helps out. And, little things here and there, people really do help. But you really do depend on a lot of other agencies and organizations to try and make it all work.
We do, especially the faith-based community. There are several churches in town that reach out to us and help us meet those funding goals. And, for the last year, Tim, the Haven has kind of been in what I like to refer to as financial repair mode. And our long-term plans call for us to kind of be in that repair mode for probably another 12 to 14 months, maybe 2 years on the outside, just to get the Haven back to where it needs to be from where it was. A year ago, we were talking about payrolls that we missed and financial struggles we were in. And we've worked hard this last year to trim back staff and to trim back expenses and to align the Haven's finances with what we can support and what money does come in with what we can do. and we're facing another issue with that right now.
Yep. Recently, some bad news came in just a few weeks ago that a major source of your funding was not going to be there. Daniel Jones, our guest, the executive director at Haven of Rest Ministries and Inasmuch House, will be doing our annual roof sit coming up in about 3 weeks to raise $60,000 and fund a quarter of the shelter, which you said 55 beds?
Yeah, 55 beds at Inasmuch House, and very, very full all the time.
Yeah, moms and their kids and people who, through one reason or another just have nowhere else to go. And thank goodness we've got one place for them to go.
Yeah, it's a great ministry. It's been around 62 years and open every day, 24 hours a day since 1956. So, yeah, we have a great place.
62 years without being shut down for a day.
Yeah.
That is really something else. Now, recently, though, you did get some bad news. One of the organizations that funds your organization has decided, we're going to put our money somewhere else this year.
Yeah, it's a total of about $150,000. And unfortunately, the community investment goals just don't line up with what the Haven is pursuing right now. So we are looking at, a very serious reduction in funding here. $150,000 is a huge, huge hit to the Haven. To the extent, we're looking at the viability of some of our programs. And we lose money in a given year, lose money, excess of expenses over revenues in feeding people. It costs well over $100,000 to feed 68,000 meals a year.
Right.
And that's, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day for that 140, 150 people that I talked about. I've got an amazing staff in the kitchen, led by Mike Nichols and our group there. They literally turn loaves and fishes into those meals to feed the thousands, and it's a miracle every day. So 68,000 meals a year coming through there, and you can just imagine the cost of payroll for people to prepare them, the utilities. Sometimes we have to buy a little bit of pasta or some cream or some whatever to put things together. But we do have an excess of expenses over revenues, just the feeding program of $100,000. So that's a tough one. And,
you're not going to be able to cut that, are you? I mean, what would you have to do if you with $150,000 shortfall, if there's not some other way for that to be made up?
Well, you start to reach out to the very large churches in the area, and certainly the smaller ones too. You got to go for the big ones first. Talk to the faith-based community and say, hey, and even to the larger community. The big question is literally, Battle Creek, do you value these programs? Now, feeding people, I think everybody can agree that's important. The other two programs that are really at risk here are our men's and women's life recovery program, especially our women's life recovery, because the funder that we mentioned was fully 50% of the funding for the women's life recovery program. So in their absence, that's going to be something we have to really work hard at funding. These are programs to help people suffering through addiction into recovery. The men's program is a 1-year program. The ladies' program is a slightly shorter time. We offer residency in both situations. The men are right on site in residence. The ladies stay at Inasmuch House, and we've dedicated some of the beds at Inasmuch House for the ladies in this program. Some do actually come from their home into the program, but some stay with us at Inasmuch House when they have to leave the home environment.
Now, when the agency that provides that funding that's gone away, when they told you, hey, sorry, we're going to allocate that $150,000 somewhere else, did they tell you what the plan was for that?
Well, no, it was just less than 90 days notice of, hey, we're going to cut your funding. Sorry about that, and have a nice day. It was a little bit brutal. I would have preferred a little bit more notice, and in a perfect world, I would have gotten that. But you deal with reality.
Okay.
And this group wants to focus on reducing infant mortality in the county, and that's all well and good. That's their money. They can do with it what they will.
Well, certainly we would like to have infant mortality rates lessened in our county, but my thought is, okay, probably in this day and age, most of that is due to drug use by parents, especially mothers.
Yeah, if you look at some of the statistics, it bears it out. 75% of the children, and this is a very small amount of children, and I'm not minimizing that, right? It's not something that every single child is a tragedy if it doesn't make it to the first birthday.
Sure.
But most of the defects and the things that are going to cause a child not to survive are probably related back to substance abuse in the mother and or the father during that first, couple of months in the child is being developed.
Yeah, the mother more of a direct, if a mother's addicted to a drug, the child's going to be too or suffer birth defects, and the father unable to care for that child. And at times, we see it over and over again, can't deal with a child making noise in the room and does something terrible in a fit of rage.
Sure.
So it would seem to me the best way that we could fight infant mortality rates, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert here, but I'm just from a common sense standpoint, it seems to me the best way that we could lower infant mortality rates is by addiction and drug treatment.
You could make a very strong argument about that. And we've had some excellent results with ladies who are pregnant in our Women's Life Recovery Program. And we've got statistics on how in the last year we've had, more than half a dozen children being born in our program and being born healthy. And that's great. We love that. So I think you've made a good argument. At the end of the day, again, we have to deal with reality. This funding is going away. So we've got less than 90 days to deal with it. So the question is, Battle Creek, do you value these programs? Let's make these programs happen. And we got a lot of ground to make up in a very short time.
We'll have you back to talk more about it. In the meantime, if somebody would like to help out and get started today and helping to make up that deficit, what can they do?
Well, directly from our website, we've got the donation portal open there. Go to www.thehavenbc. That's thehavenbc.org. And you can make a donation online or send us something in the mail at 11 Green Street, 49014 here in Battle Creek.
Thehavenbc.org.
Yep.
Daniel Jones, thanks. We'll talk to you again real soon.